Welcome to Rebel Speak and Isaiah Meanderings. We're finishing up the 4 chapters that are addressed to the whole earth, and just kind of not just addressed to the whole earth at that time when earth itself as we know it comes to consummation, is consumed, and the future moves forward, and the powers and the way power works comes to an end. And so picking up on the last few verses of chapter 26 and finishing with chapter 27, we're going to look at this. Go home, my people, and lock your doors. Hide until the Lord's anger against your enemies has passed. God is working and God is moving, and it will be full and complete. Look, the Lord is coming from heaven to punish the people of the earth for their sin. Okay. There's a false sense today, I would say, that how I live my life, no one sees and no one cares. It doesn't matter. And God says, I see, I care. It deeply, greatly matters. And there will be a day when the Lord is coming from heaven to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will no longer hide those who have been murdered. They will be brought out for all to see. And there's this sense very clearly, when Cain kills Abel, we're told that the earth, the blood cries out from the earth. And there's a way that as we've lived our life on earth, we have thought that we could outsmart any judgment against us, but the earth itself is aware of our sin. The earth itself is aware of our violence. The dead bodies, right? Dust to dust, ash to ash. The earth will no longer hide those who have been murdered. The consequence of all our perversion and lies, all the dead, all the hidden, all the ways that we thought we could hide from any accountability will be seen and will be made known. Chapter 27, verse 1. In that day, this final day, this day that will come, this day that is coming, this day when all that has been and ever was is brought to light and to completion, right? In that day, the Lord, Yahweh, will take his terrible swift sword and punish Leviathan. And Leviathan is a sea creature that we meet quite a bit in the Old Testament, Leviathan. And Leviathan represents that which can destroy us, that which is more powerful than us, chaos. The sea, as I read scripture, is terrifying. It's beyond control. The sea is beyond control, and what lives in the sea is beyond control. And there's this great sea monster, Leviathan, that embodies the chaos that destroys our life, that is greater than ourselves. And in that day, there's something about Leviathan that's not right. I've read where people also see Leviathan as a kind of a Satan character person, but that Leviathan can represent the evil one. Okay, and that day the Lord will take his terrible swift sword and punish Leviathan, the swiftly moving serpent, the coiling, writhing serpent, the dragon of the sea. I see it more as that which destroys, that which oppresses, that which wreaks havoc upon our lives. You destructive chaos, writhing serpent will be destroyed in that day. You will be no more. In that day, we will sing of the pleasant vineyard. Okay, that chapter 5, Isaiah, who's God's vineyard? Israel, the full nation of Israel, the restored nation of Israel. In that day, we will sing of the pleasant. What was the vineyard in chapter 5? It was bitter. It set the teeth on edge, unexpected bitterness. But in that day, we will sing of the pleasant vineyard. I, Yahweh, will watch over and tend its fruitful vines. And this is kind of a continuous. And just hear that love. I will be the one. I will be the one that will watch over the pleasant vineyard I love. I will be the one that will tend its fruitful, what? Fruitful, right? Full of life. It's fruitful vines. I will be the one. Each day I will water them. So loving, so cherishing. Day and night I will watch to keep enemies away. This is reality. This is long-term reality. This is what that day will wrought, right? What that day when that which should not be is destroyed, a sweetness will go forth that will be never ending. This is all never ending language. Each day I will water them, day and night I will watch to keep enemies away. Those enemies that have risen and fallen and destroyed, they will be finally put to rest forever. They will be no more. Enemies will be no more. Great day. My anger against Israel will be gone. We'll see this later too, this idea of God's anger being no more. My anger against Israel will be gone. If I find briars and thorns bothering her, I will burn them up. These enemies will be spared only if they surrender and beg for peace and protection. Okay, there's a justice always in God, always. Those that are trying to destroy those he loves can beg for protection and ask for peace. Beg for peace and ask for protection. The time is coming when my people will take root. They will be, we're in this land, this language of vineyard, of produce, of fruitfulness, of being the delicious fruit that they are meant to be. The time is coming when my people will take fruit. Israel will bud and blossom and fill the whole earth with her fruit. This was God's intention all along, that the whole world be blessed by the deliciousness of who Israel is, that all will taste and see and know of God's goodness through Israel. Has the Lord Yahweh punished Israel in the same way he has punished her enemies? This is what he would say, a rhetorical question. It's going to answer it right here. No. No. And this is a word of assurance in the midst of these very, this very pronounced judgment that's happening. Here's a question. Has the Lord punished Israel in the same way he has punished her enemies? No. For he has devastated her enemies, brought them to an end. But he has punished Israel only a little. He has exiled her from her land as though blown away in a storm from the east. A hot wind from the east blew her. The Lord Yahweh did this to purge away Israel's sin, to make her be all that she was meant to be, to atone for that which is broken within her, to make it right, to bring it forth to life. When Yahweh has finished, all the pagan altars will be crushed to dust. There's this wind, and it's making things so dry. This hot wind's going to get rid of all the false worship. It's going to be desiccated, right? When something's desiccated, it's dried out to powder. These false places of worship will be crushed to dust. There will be no more Asherah poles, no more incense altars left standing. All your fake places of worship will be burned. There will be no more. Israel's fortified cities, there's this contrast of the Israel to come that's full of life, and the Israel being purged that's the hot wind has destroyed. Israel's fortified cities will be silent and empty. This broken, destructive Israel that's not what it should be will be empty. The houses abandoned, the streets covered with grass. Cattle will graze, they're chewing on the twigs and branches that are left. What's left of the vineyard, twigs and branches, and cattle will be chewing on that. That will be gone too. The people are like the dead branches of a tree, broken off, not just any tree, the dead branches of a fruit tree, a tree that's meant to be vibrant and alive with life. The people are like the dead branches of a tree, broken off and used for kindling beneath the cooking pot. There's no hope for those branches. There's no hope. They're not going to come back to life. They're like any kindling that is used to cook food upon. Israel is a foolish and stupid nation, for its people have turned away from God. There's that pronouncement. Israel is a foolish and stupid nation, for its people have turned away from God. Therefore, the one who made them will show them no pity or mercy. Yet, I didn't want to interrupt that. There's something in Isaiah that's very comfortable with the reality of this fruitlessness of you has no value. This fruitlessness, what you have allowed yourself to become, is like kindling. Yet, the time will come when the Lord will gather them together one by one like hand-picked grain. Why? Because they're precious. They're precious little pearls of grain. They're precious. He will gather the grain that he will find. He will gather it. He will bring them to his great threshing floor. All the way he will find them from the Euphrates River in Mesopotamia, all the way to the east, to the brook of Egypt in the west, all the way from the east of the Mesopotamia to the west of Egypt. And here is how this chapter will end. In that day, the great trumpet will sound. Many who were dying in exile in Assyria and Egypt will return to Jerusalem to worship the Lord on his holy mountain. This is the ending of chapter 27, where we have the pearl, the fruit of grain that God himself will find, and God himself will delight, and there will be a returning after all that is false. The wind of the east has desiccated, brought to, right, dried out, so it's merely kindling. But it's not the final word, because there's life. There's grain to be found, and God himself will find it, and God himself will seek it far and wide, right, from Mesopotamia all the way to Egypt. And then what will happen? Many who were dying in exile, dying in their misery, dying in their state of being, if you will, in Assyria and Egypt, will return to Jerusalem to worship Yahweh on his holy mountain. That is everything made right. That is everything made right. A returning to not normal, not this. In the Old Testament, many times we see this ebb and kind of rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall of righteousness, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall of enemies defeating, rise and fall. It will be no more. The nature of history is not circuitous or even sinusoidal, I believe that's called, a curve that goes up and down, serpentine. It's not that. All of this is moving towards the day when, and at that day, there will be a returning and a worship throughout the earth that will be right, good and right. You and I are living to that day in expectation and joy. The joyous day set before us, because God is faithful to that end. Amen.